Well, that was weird. I just talked to the camera for 10 minutes at least, 15 maybe, about all those important things and developments at the end of my previous video. But I had not turned the resume button on properly. So that's gone into the cosmos. And it's not really possible for me to bring it back at this point. What I was saying, I was going on rather well, I think, about my Tummo progress report. But because it has there's a lot of personal development that has come from it, that was what I was going into in those last 10 minutes, you know. I suppose I'd made the connection pretty clearly between the programming of the past, where I come from, and the identification that I carried around with me, you know, with my people, with my family, my relatives, and all that. How basically what I've been calling it the whole time, how I wasn't differentiated from them, and how going through the past couple of weeks, I have been discovering that there's actually a real self inside me that is still there, and that the actual interesting bit is what I've managed to not record. So I'm going to try that again here, but it will have to be slightly different from the first version, of course, because that's how life is, right? It is never really easy to, you can't just press, it's not a machine. I am not a machine. So I'm having to deal with that as I sit here. I find that my brain is kind of jammed now because it is frustrated over having to do something a second time, the same thing, which is what I just said I'm not going to do. So yeah. It has been a real relief to me to find that I have actually got a real self hidden away deeply behind all the loyalty issues and all the rest of it, you know. The obeying of the formulas and the allowing the past to write my life for me again and again, you know, that's what's happened. And it turns out that the self that is inside me has one talent. It's connected to things to some extent, but it has basically this wonderful capacity of registering a part of my life as my own. And I wish I could translate that, and that's what I had, I think, gone into at least a bit with my paint, this paint here, which is what I didn't record, you know. This is a paint which is made from this pigment here, which I bought in the south of France in a little village where they dig this stuff out of the ground and clear it out so as to make a red ochre powder pigment of it. I used to, I can tell you all sorts of things about this stuff, but the thing is that there is the new thing, as a consequence to the Tummo practice, new thing, is that I can now say that this is mine. It belongs to me and I belong to it. And that has always been there, but it used to be very much off to the side. And that's probably one of the relatively important things that I remember from my first session that I haven't recorded, is that the more that little voice is pushed out of the frame. And it was completely out of the frame for me. I have not even ever realized it except in memories where it was allowed. Apparently, memories of the landscape in the south of France, the hills and the fields, the orchards and all that stuff. It was safe. I suppose that's why I have revisited pleasant memories. I've been shamelessly nostalgic all the time. But there was a little thread of truth in there, in all those memories. It seems to me now. Because there's a vibrational nature to this paint, to this stuff, in that it contains a lot of iron and all that, So there's a rational type of a mental, how do you use this kind of a thing, type of description for this particular product that I could tell you about and where it's from and where I bought it and blah, blah, and all that. I have some really good memories of taking the school bus from my own little home village to the town that I went to school at for 3 years, back and forth every day, also in the wintertime, passing through the hills where you could often see this type of red earth, on either side of the bus, and watching for that in all sorts of kinds of weather, in the rain, in the fog. You'd still have this immensely powerful red glow. It looks more like this when it's wet, obviously, because this has water in it. It's really hard to describe that it is so, because it's so simple. To say simply, it is part of me, part of my life. I am part of it. And that voice, that little tiny self, is what gives all the value to everything. That sense of connection. And I'm still, it's very hard to put into words, and it's very hard to, I've tried writing it down several times already. And I think I will be I will be trying more. But it's just like the experience of being a part of something has become so much more alive. It has become bigger and broader and more real and more, and that's all Tummo. It's not the Tummo doing it. The Tummo makes it possible inside me. I make it happen. But I didn't have access before to these things. And I spent all of my life believing and subscribing, if you like, to everybody's traumas and definitions of life, out of loyalty. I had sold my soul, I suppose. Only there wasn't a particular moment where that happened. There wasn't a moment. It was already all there when I was a toddler, when I was an infant. There has not been a time in my life where I had a choice to subscribe or not to subscribe to the ideas that I was surrounded with. And that's the really scary bit. And that same thing applies to my parents and their parents as well. Everybody in my family was under the Imperius curse. There, that's it. So I felt that it was really worth saying that, and that to break through that feels bloody amazing. And I'm wondering for a second here, as I sit here, whether I could ever feel doubt again over this. And I don't feel doubt. I don't feel any doubt. It's just that my brain is having a really hard time keeping up with it all. And I suppose I've encountered that. I have encountered moments when I'd first had this differentiation issue become clear for me, that there is a self hidden beneath and behind everything that isn't really all that invested in all the things going on. Then I had a phase of a couple of days, I think 3 or 4 days or so, where I was constantly hungry. I was, you know, I was trying to constantly looking for food, basically. And after a while, I realized that that was happening. And I went into this feeling and I went like, so this is quite obvious to me now that I am looking for food because I am looking for my mother. Because my mother and food and love, whatever was there, meant survival. The moment I'd realized that, the idiotic kinds of cravings went away. And I've just been, eating normally and enjoying my meals, like I normally do. But it hasn't been like this, ooh, geek, gotta, stuff my face the whole time. So I thought that was striking. It was striking and it went away when I had the realization afterwards. It was, just like, okay, so it was that easy. But I had to feel it. I'm looking for my mother in this food. I'm looking for affection. I'm looking for confirmation. I'm looking for support. I'm looking to survive, basically. And that's the level at which I never had a choice. I was forced to sell out, basically, at that point already. Because somebody organized this world so that the infants don't have a choice, right? And if an infant is given a choice, I'm suddenly halting again because I'm remembering what it feels like that in order to survive, you actually have to perform in a way, or else they will just let you go. Gods, they were really not on my side, were they? Sorry for the silence. It's just that it hits me again. And it's not, I'm just going to say it again. My mother never really wanted any of this. But she was a bit on the stupid side. She wasn't really, she never realized, and her parents never realized, and their parents never realized. It just goes back generations of treating an infant like they should be grateful for being given what they need to survive. And if you imagine a situation, if I were in the old way, in the old world, if I imagine a world where I am getting given the support that I need, that is supposedly what I need in order to live, in order to be a person, in order to have an identity, then that support will make me into an unbearably arrogant, selfish, self-centered creature who doesn't care about other people. This is more or less, in a nutshell, what I grew up with. Getting given attention means you become almost a demonic version of yourself, greedy and self-serving. Good Lord, if I'm just trying to find the words, it takes me a while for me to get the words out. My mother had a very strong politic of always promoting the idea that you had to make do and had to support yourself only. You had to do it. And getting support from other people was just not, it was impossible. It was even dangerous in some way or other. It's really weird. It's so weird. I'm just sharing this with you guys because it's apparently what was supposed to happen. This is why I didn't record what I was supposed to be recording earlier. Because this bit has to be out there as well. It's part of the deal. It isn't only about energy work and about mushrooms and about expansion and all your problems just fade away. It isn't like that. It's a process and it keeps going. Maybe I can show you this card after all. I drew this card a long while ago. Actually, it was last year, I think. It was the last one of my second series Rose Oracle cards. So I finished off my former video, my previous video, with a little bit where I showed you this card right here. So it doesn't focus properly. I can only show you that stuff face down, properly, and I will as soon as I've got more material to show you. This is a little image of, let me show you whether I can, if I just block my face out, maybe it'll work. It's a dinosaur, okay? The dinosaur's got an apron on and a bucket of soap, water and a sponge, and it's doing housework. This is the female side of patriarchy, okay? Just to find the easiest possible words for that. But what I was saying just now, it's the inside of this is what it looks like on the outside. So I'll still have to figure out a card for what it looks like on the inside when the inside of the undifferentiated thing I subscribed to with my parents, with my mother in particular, was that it just comes straight from my grandmother, whom I haven't known personally because she was dead before I was born. Okay? I've only had second-hand, third-hand experiences related to me occasionally about her, and I have a few photographs. But this is the message. You do not deserve support. How alone was my grandmother when she was, I think she was 19 years old, when she followed her then very fresh minted husband to Indonesia. I'm going to go into birth chart again. My grandmother was a Cancer by birth, sun sign Cancer, with a moon in Capricorn opposite, Uranus in Capricorn, and Saturn in Aries opposite her Libra ascendant. So there's a massive square going on, or it's kind of a square, between those four signs. I think she was terrified of change, and it's something that nobody has ever known, except there's one little smidge of a story which I don't know if I shared already with you. Maybe I did, and maybe I can share it just once more. When they just landed in Indonesia before the war, this was like in 1930 or maybe slightly earlier, 28 or something like that. She was in a tropical climate for the first time. It was 40 degrees and she could not sweat. She didn't perspire at all. And she was going bonkers. Basically, she was lying on a hotel bed or in a house or somewhere where they'd just gotten into. And it was late at night and she was desperate because she just couldn't sweat. And my grandfather told us this story a few times, 30 years ago or whatever time it was. I'm still shocked at how weird this is, because, I mean, what's more natural than it's 40 degrees? You're bound to, you're with Indonesian spicy food and all that, and hot drinks and hot chili sauces. You're supposed to be, flaming. It's hot. So yeah, you sweat, right? You're dripping. Not her. And my granddad always told it, because it was one of his success stories, of course, which is what he told us about. I've never known my grandfather any other way than pleasant and like a friend. He was my friend to me always. Not to his daughter that much. So that was very confusing. What he did is that she was, I think crying even, lying on her bed and desperate because she didn't know how to deal with heat. She couldn't stand the heat, basically. And he got out a massive bottle of cologne and sprinkled the cologne all over her body. And suddenly she broke out in sweat. And that was it. It was after that her body had figured it out. Her skin had figured out how to do this, how to live with this climate. It is just one teeny tiny little short story about a person that I know nothing, next to nothing about otherwise, other than this birth chart business that I just told you about. But that's crucial, right? This is how resistant she was. This is the level of resistance that my mother grew up with, that she told me about. But because I was immersed myself in this whole system with her, I never got to realize that things could have been different, or that there are ways in which you can relate to the same thing differently. One of my big problems looking at things from this position I'm in now is that I've so often had only one perspective on something. Either my mother's perspective. Talking to my dad last year in 2019 has proven particularly useful, because I got to get a separate set of perspectives about the same thing, which gives you a 3D kind of a new version of things. Having only one perspective ever, that's, I think, very much part of the imperious curse of the and of being undifferentiated. Yeah. Okay, that's another 23 minutes worth. This is, you see how the Tummo, it starts off easy enough with the Tummo practice, and then it becomes this huge self-development story. But I want to record this because that's my deal. I am not only about Om and doing a Vajrasattva mantra, which is a good idea, by the way. I will put a link to a Vajrasattva mantra that I've been listening to on and off into the description to this video here. I will just upload the whole thing as is, part 1 and part 2, because yeah, what the heck. And I hope it makes some kind of sense. It's a very special kind of a process, and the Tummo does not let you get away with stuff ever. It doesn't solve things for us without us noticing, without us paying attention, without us caring. The things that we really care about come to the surface no matter what. So it turns out I did care about both my parents all this time. Only to feel it and to express it, that's a different story. That's just how it had never had a chance to be. So some of it may sound rather dire, and it was. And I'm sorry for that, but I know also that you are here. If you lasted all this time, then you know what I'm on about. And it is easy to talk about the easy things. But and there's lots still of good things and pretty things that I can share. And I will share my Rose Oracle cards again and just show you, you know, what the other sides of things are. But to have this this sense of that this is mine now is incredible. It means I can draw things that I want also. I can, and that's a whole story waiting to unfold right there. So on that note, I am going to wrap this up right now. Thank you so much for coming along today. And I suppose it's going to be a Tummo update in 2 parts. Was with all the jumble, you know. And I'm trying to think at this point whether there's any particular... There's one particular Tummo bit. Occasionally I get Tummo energy coming all the way up into my frontal lobes in here. And I'm starting to suspect that we have more than 1/3 eye. So, because all this is basically different sets of extra multi-perception gizmos. Cool, really cool. Extremely cool, and loads more stuff to develop right there. So thank you. Love you to pieces. Okay, stay well, stay in one piece, because then you can always forge ahead. Okay, see you next time. Bye for now.